morning, Roll Gang, and welcome on inside to a Motivational Monday episode of the Weekday Wake and Bake. I am your host this morning, Processor Sky, and just like every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, we have awoke, so now we smoke, as is stoner law to wake and bake. So this morning's episode is Motivational Monday, which means I wanted to break down a couple motivational quotes from famous people that have made it to the top of their role in their respective industry, and just wanted to give a major shout out to the Roll Gang to have an absolutely awesome week. But before we get on into the show this morning, major shout out to the sponsors of the show because they make it happen for us here and for the Roll Gang. So first one is Amsterdam University, the first ever cannabis college in the United States and the predominant place to gain cannabis industry knowledge. Guys, check out Amsterdam University and the courses they offer, like home grow courses, you got cannabis business courses, and you can really just dive into the industry through Amsterdam. So if you're really looking to claim your stake in this budding industry, Amsterdam University is the place to do just that. Use promo code Rolling Spoon with your checkout of your tuition, and you get a 10% scholarship to your program of choice. So really hope you guys hit up Amsterdam University to learn about pot. But also this episode is brought to you by the Rolling Spoon Cannabis Multi-Tool, helping you and I to seal a deal and roll a dime every time. Shout out the High Bud Tenders podcast. Got this dope High Bud Tenders spoon with the hand-drawn artwork. Looks absolutely sexy. But anyways, it is Motivational Monday, Roll Gang, and we have some motivational quotes for you guys. 5 of them. We have Abe Lincoln, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Mark Twain, Epicurus, and also a quote from an unknown individual, which I think is pretty interesting because there's some famous quotes with unknown origins. Imagine someone's somewhere and they invented these quotes and passed away, and sadly they don't get credit. But the one from an unknown source is actually probably my favorite one. So without further ado, Roll Gang, let's derive some motivation for this week on this Motivational Monday episode of the Weekday Wake and Bake. I hope you guys are blazing some herb right now, rolling up with me with your Rolling Spoon Cannabis Multi-Tool, and we can smoke some weed and get motivated for this week. We got to tackle this week, baby. First week of August. It's August 1st, Roll Gang, and we have got to tackle the hell out of this month. It's the last month of this beautiful summer, so we gotta absolutely live it up. So the first quote here on this Motivational Monday episode of the Weekday Wake and Bake comes from Honest Abe Abraham Lincoln. And Abe Lincoln says, "Be sure to put your feet in the right place and then stand firm." I absolutely love this quote. Let's read it one more time. Be sure to put your feet in the right place and then stand firm. So this has 2 crucial parts. This one sentence, one quote, has 2 parts from Abraham Lincoln. 2 pieces of advice from Honest Abe, one of the best presidents in the history of this great country. I believe, no, it was George Washington that grew pot, but some of the early presidents were growing pot on their plantations. It's pretty gnarly. But anyways, Honest Abe, be sure to put your feet in the right place and then stand firm. So the first part of this quote, be sure to put your feet in the right place. I just take this as calculate before you make your opinion. Do your research, make sure you're well educated before you make a firm opinion. But whenever you realize something and you truly believe it and you've done your research and you believe it full-heartedly, stand firm. The only significance in life is the significance you create. We talk about that basically every Motivational Monday. But Roll Gang, make sure you're calculating your shots very well, because depending on what it is that you cherish or worship, some gods are violent gods and nasty. Just make sure you're doing your research. Be sure to put your feet in the right spot, basically, is what Abraham Lincoln is saying. But once you're sure that you're in the right place, it's important to stand your ground and just stand firm for what you believe in and stick up for yourself and everything that you stand for. So once you realize you're standing for the right thing, you're standing in the right spot, stand firm. That's what Abraham Lincoln is saying on this Motivational Monday of the Weekday Wake and Bake. So Abraham Lincoln said, be sure to put your feet in the right place, then stand firm. Great quote from Honest Abe. The next quote here on this Motivational Monday episode of the Weekday Wake and Bake comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Ralph Waldo Emerson says, what you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. I'm also smoking so loudly that you probably can't hear what I say. This thing is a fucking dime. Just like every morning. Look at that baby. I mean, shit. Great to smoke some weed and get motivated here on this Monday morning with you guys, Roll Gang. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, what you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. And it's kind of funny because he's saying that, right? It's a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. But, I mean, saying something is not as strong as doing something. I think we all know that. Like, actions speak louder than words, one of the oldest quotes in the book. But Ralph Waldo Emerson just puts it in this really satirical manner where he says, what you're doing speaks so loudly that I can't even hear what you're saying. So basically, you can talk all the shit you want. It all comes down to what you do, the actions you take. Talk is cheap as fuck. In fact, it's more than free. Sometimes it's fun to talk, but it's tough to act. It takes energy. It takes passion and desire. So make sure that whatever you firmly stand for, like Abe said, you're taking action and not just talking about it, because action is what matters at the end of the day. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson. So I have 3 more quotes here on this Motivational Monday of the Weekday Wake and Bake. It's been awesome sharing Abe Lincoln, Ralph Waldo Emerson with you guys so far, but real quick shout out to the Rolling Spoon Cannabis Multi-Toll helping me to roll up this dime so I can smoke in peace this morning. Amazing smoke. Got some cherry punch in the joint. Absolutely perfect ember rolled by a rolling spoon. And your processor. So the next quote here on the Weekday Wake and Bake Motivational Monday edition is from Mark Twain. So Mark Twain says, I have never let schooling interfere with my education. I just love the satirical little drops, you know, the ironic nature of some of these quotes. Mark Twain says, I have never let my schooling interfere with my education. And I just think this is so important nowadays. we are all being taught in the same method. And I'd say maybe 25% of us learn that way. You know, like what I learned in school had nothing to do with history or math or science. It was connectivity. It was energy and love and friendship, you know? So you gotta really try hard not to let modern schooling interfere with your education. I know there's probably no minors watching this, but it's just, I hope we're open to changing the education system one day, because schooling is not education. We learn from experience and from doing. So, I mean, schooling kind of just holds us back from that. You're going from class to class being talked at by some old person who knows a little bit about something, but nothing that I really want to know or care about. So, I mean, just don't let it get in the way of your education. We're all still getting to where we're going, but what matters is the experience, is doing. So just make sure that you are attacking that role, gang. But I appreciate Mark Twain. I've never let schooling interfere with my education. Shout out Mark Twain. So the next quote here on this Motivational Monday is the unknown quote. The quote from an unknown source. Can you imagine this deceased person's never going to get credit for their amazing quote. But before I get on into it, huge shout out, Oaksterdam University, the first ever place to get your cannabis education. It is really a great way to claim your stake in this budding industry and learn about this magical plant. Learn how to home grow it with their homegrown course. Promo code Rolling Spoon, 10% off tuition. Oaksterdam University. So the next quote from an unknown source says, worry is a misuse of imagination. Wow. That's power. Just let that resonate for a second. Worry is a misuse of imagination. So essentially, worrying is imagining ways that things can go bad. And we all do it. I mean, it's not like, this isn't a quote saying, don't worry, be happy. You know, like we all worry sometimes, but it's just a perfect, hopefully you can remember this the next time you're worried. Hopefully I can remember. I mean, shit. Worry is just a misuse of imagination. It's using your imagination to see something that could go wrong. You know, I mean, I think it's a defense mechanism. Maybe if you're worried, you can avoid the situation from going wrong in the first place. But it's still crazy that you're imagining something happening that hasn't happened yet. Why not, instead of worry, we just hope? You know, they're alternatives, but they're all part of the imagination. Invent the world that you want to live in. It's your imagination that matters. You control that motherfucker. So hone it in. Worry is a close relative with hope. But don't misuse your imagination, you know, Roll Gang. Make sure that we're utilizing our thoughts properly and not misusing our creative power by imagining a bad situation. Worry is a misuse of imagination. A powerful quote from a powerful individual that none of us will ever know. So, the last quote here on this Motivational Monday episode of the Weekday Wake and Bake comes from one of my favorite philosophers of all time, classic Greek philosopher, Epicurus. And Epicurus says, the greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. Powerful quote from Epicurus. The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. It's really incredible the parallels that adversity runs with success, that struggles line up identically with prosperity, and you have to overcome a world of hurt to reach any gain. And that is a great example coming from Epicurus. The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. So roll gang, let's fight the adversity this week. I hope that this is a tough week for us all. I hope that we have to face some adversity, because I know one thing about you guys, roll gang, and about me, about us. We will persevere. We will persevere, roll gang. The greater the difficulty, the greater the glory, coming from Epicurus, and we will take his word for it. We will fight this week, and we will come out better and stronger on the other side, feeling the satisfaction of next weekend. Let's surmount this week, roll gang. Shout out to everybody who tuned in, getting their motivation for this week from the Motivational Monday episode of the Weekday Wake and Bake. You know how much I love session with you guys, roll gang, on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Every single one of you guys tapping in is deeply close with me, and I can't express my appreciation enough. So roll gang, until tomorrow, Tuesday episode of the Weekday Wake and Bake, 8 a.m. Pacific time. You know where to find me, but I'm going to go smoke the rest of this joint. I hope you guys had a great Wake and Bake too while watching the show, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. For Sesher Sky, Motivational Monday,